Hello, YouTube. This is Dr. Matt Moynihan from the Fusion Podcast. I want to give a little talk that I gave at the Pittsburgh Nerd Night in August of 2021. Thought that the folks on the internet would have a lot of use for this. This is a high-level discussion of nuclear fusion. Hope you enjoy it. Good evening. My name is Dr. Matt Moynihan. Today I want to talk about a power source that I believe we absolutely need to be spending more time, money, and resources on in this country. That is nuclear fusion. This is a picture of different fuel sources up here. 1,000 megawatts of power. You can see it's 2.7 million tons of coal, 133 mills in California, 28 tons of uranium, but you can do the whole thing in 250 kilograms of deuterium tritium. That's the kind of energy density that nuclear fusion provides. The statistic that I have from the Discovery Channel is that you could take all the energy needs for a person, their heating, their water, their transportation, everything they need, for 30 years. You could get that all from a bathtub of fusion fuel. That's about 30 gallons of water. So it's kind of an amazing power source, and it produces anywhere from 10 to 15 times more energy than a conventional fission power plant. And I'm here to talk about it. I have a fusion podcast, thefusionpodcast.com. You can look that up. I'm working on a new book. There's a picture of the new cover down there that we hope to publish soon. But fusion is a very potent power source. It's so potent, in fact, that it could be used for fusion-driven rockets. This is two pictures of two fusion concepts from different companies in this space. There are several private companies pursuing this that are getting funding in the United States from the federal government to pursue a fusion rocket. All these concepts are roughly the same. You have a chamber in the back of the ship. The fusion plasma occurs at the center of the chamber. Material leaves at relativistic-like speeds that hits the surface of the ship and is directed out the back, pushing the rocket forward. So on the left, you have helicity drive. It's a very nice concept in California. And then on the right, you have the Princeton Fusion FRC out of Princeton, New Jersey. We have some estimates. We're looking at something like 110 days to Mars if we had a rocket like this. It makes the interplanetary trip basically equivalent to what a trip across the Atlantic Ocean would have been like several hundred years ago. So it's really a must-have if we want to master interplanetary flight, and I think these concepts really need to get a lot more attention. I will also say that a lot of these reactor concepts are innovative. The helicity drive especially relies on magnetic reconnection, which I think is sort of an unsung plasma trick that a lot of concepts need to use. But also the advanced superconductors. So we have superconductors now that are a range of 10 Tesla, but 40 Tesla concepts exist in labs. There's no reason why we can't bring 40 Tesla magnets out to make these concepts ultra-high field, and that would really change the game. But what about energy solutions or solutions closer to Earth? We don't have fusion power on the market, but what we do have is commercial applications of nuclear fusion. So this is an example of Shine. This is a picture of their staff. Shine and Phoenix are twin companies out of Wisconsin. And since 2005, they developed some pretty advanced fusion technology. Today, for $1 million, you can buy a machine about the size of your car that will fuse material for 182 hours continuously. That's a picture in the lower left of the Thunderbird machine. That's the one I'm talking about. The Thunderbird produces neutrons from a fusion reaction, and those neutrons can be fed into material that will form medical isotopes. A very exciting billion-dollar market that I think both Shine and Phoenix will absolutely crush in the coming years. And currently, they have several plants under construction in Indonesia, one in the United States, and one over in Europe. Additionally, the neutrons can be used for neutron imaging, so N-rays are definitely a possibility. On the right is a picture from Phoenix of a object imaged using an N-ray. I also think that there are applications for this in rare gas generation. That's one market that I don't think anyone's gone after. Helium a few years ago was in an international shortage in 2011. where helium prices went up through the roof. So you're fusing hydrogen, you're making helium. There's no sense in not trying to see if you could purify the product and sell it that way. So there's another whole market for fusion that's really untapped, and it could be quite lucrative. Additionally, of course, they're in material testing. Neutrons can be sometimes expensive to get from conventional fission reactions. Depending on your energy spread, this solution could work for you. I want to caution everyone that fission neutrons are several orders of magnitude more powerful than fusion neutrons in density as well as power. So you got to check your math there. Finally, there's the application of cancer treatment, and TAE Technologies does have a spin-off where they go after that with some of the stuff they develop for the fusion reactor. So then there's private fusion itself, and very happy to report that we're now up to over $2.5 billion in venture capital funding for nuclear fusion that's come over the last 15 years. These teams, they think they can get there with the superconductors. I think the biggest story in this field right now is the superconductors. We've seen ultra-high field superconductors play out in the Tokamak community, but what about the other communities? What about general fusion? What about TAE? Can you imagine what a 40 Tesla type magnet would do for a concept like CT fusion, the dynomak, or the Princeton field reverse configuration? Fields of those strengths and a magnet that could run continuously pretty much changes the entire back end of the reactor from a pulse-powered system to a continuously running system. It basically what's emerges is an entirely new class of fusion reactor that the world really hasn't seen before. Of course, the story is playing out in the Tokamak community, Tokamak Energy and Commonwealth, but what about these other concepts? I think the next 10 years is going to be really exciting because that's what's going to happen. I would also say that these superconductors are enabling private entities to basically compete with the government laboratories. We can see private groups doing things that only a few years ago that were only relegated to large government labs. So yeah, private fusion, we're making progress, and the rest of the world really needs to pay attention. We've made progress because we've been at this almost 70 years. 1957, Scalia won the first machine to do nuclear fusion that wasn't a bomb. And since then, a lot of technologies have been tried over the decades. This is a flow chart of the technologies. I write about this in the book. We've got them color-coded here for the different chapters that are in the book. Many of these have been tried. Some of them are dead ends. Some of them probably need to be looked at again. I think it's important for anybody that's getting into this field to have a sense of the history, to see what concepts have come before, because we tend to see every 10 to 15 years the same ideas, sometimes the same bad ideas come up, and people try to go after private funding for some concepts that may not be that great. So you need to understand that, and my book is a great resource for that, so check it out online if you don't know where it is. Look me up at www.fusionconsultant.net. We've made real progress. This is a plot from Michel Labarge. I won't claim to have this plot. He used this in the TED Talk in 2014, but I think it's worth underscoring that fusion has kept pace with Moore's law. If you look at the performance of fusion, plot that against Moore's law through the decades, you can see a pretty much consistent behavior. And that's amazing because the microelectronics and computer industry is $1 trillion a year global industry. And fusion is one of those spaces that almost nobody cares about or as no one has noticed. So the fact that we have kept pace really speaks to how dedicated the R&D community is to this concept. And I think people should take this more seriously. We now have a Fusion Industry Association. I'm a proud member of the Nuclear Fusion Industry Association in the United States. My firm, New Light Fusion Consultants, is down there on the lower right. Member companies and then second tier supporting companies. Our industry association is an effective group, and if folks want to get in touch, I recommend checking them out on the web. Reach out. We love to talk. We love to talk about fusion, what the implications are for the United States energy environment and technical STEM education in the U.S., and how we can foster more growth in this emerging space and how we can ultimately get to net power. So thanks, folks. I appreciate the time. Thank you for listening. I hope that was too short. Check me out, Fusion Podcast. I also have a Quora website that answers a lot of minutia questions. I have over 500 questions on there, and I'm always looking for good questions. It tends to be after 4 or 5 months of on Quora, you tend to see the same questions come up again and again and again. I'm always looking for someone who's got some really crazy question that really makes you think. FusionConsultant.net is my site, and I've got a YouTube channel, and I've also got the podcast. It's a little dated now, but it's plenty of really great interviews with wonderful fusion researchers from around the United States and the European Union. All right, well, hope everyone takes care out there. Best of luck. And